asked to introduce Robert Barich, who I call Robbie. He was, or he is, a current business major here at Adams State. He was also a student in my Psych 101 course last semester, and he did quite well in that class, by the way. He has actually been working with, he originally wrote a paper for Dr. Affeld's composition course, and that ended up turning into this project where he was interested in looking at students' awareness of sort of economic factors and how that impacted their decision-making in terms of choosing a major, I believe. We worked on a survey to test students' knowledge and how much that sort of influenced their major choice. And I think he had some pretty interesting findings. Professor Affeld did want me to express his sympathy in that he could not make it today. He had a conflicting schedule, and so, but he did want me to acknowledge that he was impressed with Robbie's writing and how he sensitively sort of looked into this phenomenon based on the selected reading by Robert Reich. So, without further ado, Robert Barich.
Thank you. So, pretty much we read Robert Reich's Aftershock, and essentially from reading I came up with some big questions of my own. But what really kind of helped me connect to it is my past experience as a cook. And I worked as a cook for 2.5 years before coming back to school. I worked as a manager, and pretty much what I saw out there really shocked me in that, I was managing people that were 30, 40 years old and making less money than me. And I'm like, all right, it's time to go back to school. And pretty much that kind of helped me connect to what he was saying in his book. And then Aftershock, Robert Reich wrote the book, and he's a former Secretary of Labor. And pretty much the main points I got from it were the income gap, which causes income inequality, is growing exponentially, especially from 1978 to around right about now. Pretty much workers are making around the same or even less than wages to average worker. And then another thing that he mentioned was people still think they can get ahead even when they're making less money. Pretty much here, this is some of his graphs, but this is showing in 1978 the typical male worker made around $48,000, while the typical 1% made around $395,000. And what this is showing is throughout over a 30-year time period, the average male worker is making around $33,000 now, compared to the typical 1% is making $1.1 million. And really, the income, it's just widening at a fascinating and exponential rate. And pretty much another big thing that he talked about in his book was the American dream. And the American dream used to be, okay, I can go to school or I can go get a job, and then I can make money and provide for my family and everything. And pretty much what this is saying now is that the American dream has diminished. With $33,000 a year, you can't really provide for a family. You can't, live very comfortably. It's just not there anymore. And essentially people are working harder for less. Even though our productivity is up, our pay is down, which is really shocking. My paper that I wrote for his class, my focus was pretty much the economic divide in between college majors and how it affects them afterwards. The main question of mine is, what is the value of higher education now? And then another one is, what are the differences between majors when it comes to income, and are students aware of them? And then back to my first question, what is the value of higher education now? This first graph on the left is showing earnings at certain points in careers. I chose electrical engineering, finance, language education, art history. And as you can see, over 30 years, electrical engineering and finance continually grow, which means that their income, the income potential there is continually rising. While language education and art history really shows us that after about year 15 or so, it levels off. You hit that income potential, which is what I was seeing while I was working as a cook. I saw that income potential at $12 an hour. While here it's much greater, you still have that income potential, which helps the income gap continually grow. Big things here are they start at different places too. So right out of college, you're already starting at a different position in life, and the potential increase is drastically different. While here on the right we have lifetime earnings in millions of dollars. It's just essentially a different way of showing the income potentials that happen. So in the x-axis of this graph is how much you make over your lifetime at the 25th percentile, 50th, the 75th, and 90th. And they're the same majors: electrical engineering, finance, and language education and art history. So as you can see here, electrical engineering and finance at the 25th percentile, 25th and 50th percentile, already making more than language education and art history are making at their 75th and 90th percentile. I really think that speaks levels to the value of that degree. Even when you're in the top 90, in that top 10%, you're only making as much as electrical engineering and finance in their 50th. And what this is showing is that the value of higher education, and especially the value of majors, has really decreased for some, but increased for others. And then the next, this was the survey that I handed out that me and Dr. Kirk worked on together. Essentially the first page is on the left. I just asked, what is your annual household income? What I got from that is their economic class. And then the next questions are all about majors and where do you think you will be? Kind of that qualitative data that, where are people thinking they're going to be in 10, 15, even 30 years? Well, the second half is mainly getting the big questions out of them. Do they know about income inequality? I chose my major because of love or money. And then how income inequality impacted their decision. While the last question is probably the biggest question is, would they change their major if they knew more? And the main demographics for the people that took the survey were, pretty evenly split between male and females, mainly 18 to 21-year-olds. Economic class was well spread out between poverty, middle class, and upper class. And then it's mainly freshmen and sophomore that took the survey. So first question I chose was question number 9. And this is, I chose my major because love, more love, less money, more money, less love, or they chose it just straight for money. Most of the people answered, they chose their major more for love than for money. And what this is showing is that, at least in my mind, it's showing that people, they aren't really thinking practically in the sense like, okay, what's this major gonna get me in my lifetime? What kind of earnings? And then the next one is question number 13, and this is just showing the comparison to number 9. And it is, I would change my major if I knew that it would have little opportunity for increasing income or raises. And the 4 answers are strongly disagree, disagree, agree, and strongly agree. most people disagreed with this statement, you know, which gets back to the point of most people are choosing their major for love. And then the next two questions, I feel like the answers contradict number 9 and 13, because this one is income inequality in America impacted my decision on major, and strongly disagree, agree, strongly agree. You know, more than half disagreed with the statement, but you still get a very fair portion of people that agreed with the survey, which I think contradicts the choosing major for love. Because granted, some people love business, and you know that's a very marketable degree. You know, most people, you know, their hobbies and their loves are, you know, creative, and those type of majors typically have less earning potentials. And then question number 12, I think that there is an ability to advance in my career field with a bachelor's degree. What this is showing is that, you know, even with the bachelor's, people still think they can get ahead, which is not true. You know, with the bachelor's degree, you know, as you saw from the graphs before, you know, you might be making $50,000 at the end of your career. You might be making $80,000, but that, you know, it's only for very highly marketable degrees you start to get above that $80,000. And what this is showing is that, you know, people or students mainly are being unrealistic. You know, they're being idealistic and thinking, you know what, I can get ahead no matter what. Doesn't matter what major I choose. You know, and mainly the findings from my surveys is that many people chose their major for love. You know, they're like, it's more important to me to do something I love than, you know, the money that comes out of it. And second thing is they do not want to change. You know, and again, this just reinforces that, you know, people chose their major for love. You know, they don't care about money. But what really interested me was that people think they can get ahead with only a bachelor's degree. This really contradicts those, you know, the last question. It's showing that, you know, hey, I chose my major for love, but I'm being idealistic and think I can get ahead. And then inequality already present has impacted some people's majors decisions, but not very many. You know, there are some people that are thinking practically, and I think it mainly is people like me that worked in the real world and didn't come back to school. We're like, you know what, there's certain majors that just aren't going to get me where I want to be in life. And I think a lot of freshmen coming in think, I can do this and earn $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 by the end of a career, when that really isn't possible. You know, there's very few cases where that happens. You know, and then conclusions, you know, students really need to be more practical and realistic about choosing majors. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, you can't choose something that you love to do, but you also have to think practically about it, because, you know, you might be providing for yourself for the rest of your life, or you might not. You know, like, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So thinking practically about it now can only help you. Then being practical about life after college is something that I think that we should be informing students about. You know, when they choose their major, educators in certain career fields, in certain majors, should be letting people know, it's like, well, we're training you, we're teaching you all this material, but you're going into a workforce that really isn't hiring, or is hiring very few people. And so I think that's very important, and I think that would be a great addition to any university's orientation or anything like that.